Hello there, everyone. Hope everyone's doing okay. Welcome in, welcome in. We're excited. We're going to give just a couple minutes for other folks to arrive here as they keep trickling in, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right, we'll just give it another minute or so. I think that's pretty good. So welcome again, everybody. We're happy to have you guys here. This is a webinar that we're putting together between the two of us, LeadSquared and Level, where we've dove in to gather some findings in marketing and enrollment data and help share those with you guys. So that's going to be our focus today. What I want to do quickly before we get started is kind of go around the room. We have some speakers and participants that we're excited to share with you. So we could go around the room and everybody kind of introduce themselves. Joy, if you wanted to kick us off.
Sure, thank you. My name is Joy McClure, and I'm the Chief Admissions Officer for Tricoci University. We have 15 beauty schools throughout the Midwest, and I'm really excited to be here today.
Awesome, thanks. Brad, you want to take it from there?
Sure. I'm Brad Stevenson. I am SVP of Marketing with Level Agency. We are a digital marketing agency with about 250 folks all around the world at this point. And I've been with the agency for about 8.5 years, and I've been working in digital marketing for almost 25 years. And a lot of that time has been spent in the higher education space, some nonprofit and a lot of for-profit, a lot of career education schools. So I'm really excited to be here today to talk about our benchmarks report that we pulled together in partnership with LeadSquared, and really excited to be here with Christopher, and Joy today. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. Appreciate that, Brad. Chris, you want to take it from there?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. Christopher Mercado here. I'm Director of Marketing for U.S. Operation for Northbridge University. We have 19 campuses in Puerto Rico. We have 8 campuses in Florida, and we have 3 more campuses in Oregon focused to aviation. So we covers from diploma and certificate all the way up to doctorate degrees and English and Spanish. And we just make a rebranding. So it's a new brand that we're implementing in the U.S. And I'm really excited to be here, share the knowledge that we have, and we appreciate all the time that you're taking to be here in the middle of the week. So thank you.
Hey, Drew, if I could, I would love to just give a moment because I know they're not going to toot their own horns. I would like to give them the opportunity to do that. I know Joy and Christopher, both of your institutions received some recognition. And we were just before everybody joined, before we went live, we were talking about the importance of career education and how emotionally impactful it can be and what I've experienced in working with these schools. So I would love for you each to talk about the recognition that you've recently received. And so I'm forcing this because I know you both wouldn't necessarily do that. So please, Joy, if you want to mention it first, some great stuff.
Yes, thank you. I do appreciate you pushing it because it's not something we would lead with. You're right. We recently just won USA Today award for vocational schools. I really feel passionately about vocational schools. I think the beauty industry is a huge growing space. I've done a lot of speaking engagements on the tool belt generation. It's something we take a lot of pride in, and to win a national award like this is something we don't take lightly. So thank you very much. I think it really represents the hard work we give in the classroom every single day to our students, and that's where we really win. So thank you for making us go into this awkward space. Thanks, Brad.
Absolutely. Thanks, Joy. And Christopher, you have one as well, right?
Yes, sir. First of all, congratulations, Joy, on the award. So in our case for Northbridge University, we just went to FABS, it's the Florida Association of Post-Secondary School and Colleges. And we just were awarded as the School of the Year inside the trade ecosystem. That for us is one of our main target and our biggest impact here in Florida. So we appreciate and we're gonna keep continue doing the best for our students.
Congrats.
Congrats to you both. Yeah, Drew, thanks
Yeah.
for letting me interrupt the flow for a second.
Yeah, not an interruption at all. I really I appreciate that. Yeah, so to follow up with all of the passion and experience that we have in this room, my name is Drew Horn. I work in partnerships with LeadSquared. So I've been in the industry and education for around 10 years, mostly focused on enrollment marketing technology. I'm happy to be surrounded by people that have a lot more experience than me in this space, but we're excited to kick off for you guys. So. As I mentioned today, we're going to be reviewing the benchmark report that LeadSquared and Level produced. So we're going to go ahead and start with a poll on our end. So we'll have that come up here shortly. There we go. So the first poll for us today is how closely are you monitoring what AI says about your institution and programs? I think the poll should be closing shortly for you guys. All right. Let's see here. Okay, I think occasionally is
Pretty
a good
good.
start.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's is that better than you expected to be, Brad?
I don't know. I mean, it's a hot topic, so I would be curious to dig into exactly how. But I don't know. Maybe we should just sign off. Everybody's got it figured out. It is a little higher than I thought, though. So yeah, we'll get into like some of the scorecard stuff and the ways we think about it in a bit. But yeah, that's great. It's great to see, actually.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and dive in. We've got some questions to go through today with our participants here. So the first one, going back to the benchmark report, we'll go ahead and start there. Brad, I wanted to start with you for this first question. So what is one finding in the report that should make higher education leaders rethink their current dashboard?
Yeah, so we have a couple I spoke at CQ recently and C-SPAN just last week or a couple weeks ago. Time is wild. But this is the one that kind of jumps out in terms of the slide we've been talking about, which is this gap between the cost per enrollment that people are education marketing leaders are most often reporting in dashboards and the cost per enrollment, which is the actual number that really ultimately at the end of the day matters, or even cost per start, right? Or cost per deposit, like as far as you can get down that pathway and you can report on. But there's a widening gap between these two. And this is not a surprise to probably anyone in this conversation today, right? In our benchmarks report, search ran average of $149 a lead, which might seem expensive compared to other channels, but it only takes about $1,900 on average to enroll a student. So almost 8% of those leads actually become students. Again, not news. Social leads are less than half the price of search, but fewer of those leads, much fewer convert. And PMAX kind of falls in the middle in terms of the benchmarks report, which we'll have a QR code for at the end of this conversation. But bottom line here is if your dashboard's top line number is cost per lead, it's going to tell you social is winning, and it isn't, right? So you want to follow the lead all the way to an enrolled student and see that something like search, even though the cost per lead is more expensive, wins by a wide margin. Now, a couple of issues with this. A surprising number of higher education marketers still don't track cost per enrolled student, right? We talk to marketing leaders all the time who are still not tracking that. A lot of schools genuinely can't see the trade-off in their accounts. And because that dashboard isn't reporting against that, they're using kind of the wrong signals to make information about investment. Many of us, though, understand this, right? Humans, smart marketing leaders, which we all are here, absolutely understand this. The issue is it gets it's becoming worse and worse, and that gap is widening because as platforms like Google and Meta implement more and more AI features and functionality and campaign types, the AI in those platforms does not know that as the way that those of us who have been working in the career education space for years and years and years actually understand that. So without being able to train AI about what is most important from an outcome perspective, we are going to be wasting money on the wrong people. And again, that's why the gap will continue to widen unless we're sending the appropriate signals about the outcomes that are most valuable back to us. I would love to know, Joy, Chris, what are you seeing, from your perspective in terms of this widening gap and how you're reporting and how you have, worked over the years to address this?
You want to go
I
first?
can go first, yeah, if you want. Yeah, sure.
Sure.
First of all, Brad, I completely agree with what you have said. I do believe that one of the biggest issues is the disconnect between what look efficient on the top of the funnel and what actually produce enrollment, start, outcome, what is profitable for the business. Sometimes we are marketing, we always, for the past years, we've been looking to have a low cost per lead. Like that was the benchmark. But now maybe the low cost per lead can create false sense of success. That's what I prefer to analyze the whole journey. So in the dashboard, as you were talking about, it's just to understand how much we're spending, but all the steps throughout the funnel to the conversion, and I even go further to understand my cost per start. So I can make sure as a profitable institution how much we are spending and understanding the real conversion. It's not just the cost per lead. And this go even further. Like for us that we have multi-campus, we have multi-program, different markets, like we have Puerto Rico and we have United States, this analysis is going to be real different based on location and based on market demand. So it's important to understand how efficient we are generating an enrollment and start, but having a healthy cost per lead. So at the end, I would say that a cheap lead that never enroll isn't basically efficient marketing. It's just a cheap lead that you're saving money, but at the end, probably gonna cost you more if you don't optimize through signals to have a better outcome.
And I would just add to that the funnel is important and we need to understand on the dashboard all the student journey. So whether it's the lead source, the speed to connect, the interview or the appointment, all the way down to enrollment to start. Obviously, the marketing metrics still matter, but they're really not going to diagnose the outcome. So we need to better understand it. If we're just looking at just that top line, one other factor I would just throw out there, I think it's obviously looking at what the lead channel is and then understanding what the cost per enrollment or cost per start is very important. If you're looking at it even from a larger step back even further, for us in the beauty school industry, an aesthetic student has a higher revenue per student than a barber student does, for example. So I probably even want to be more precise with my efforts, not always just channel, but also even which program I want. I know Christopher was saying this as well. You have different markets, whether it's Puerto Rico versus the United States. It's the same for us by program and where do we have seats available. So you can be super precise. I think the dashboard has really expanded. And what's amazing today and what's always been fascinating about the marketing side is it's very metric driven. And that really can guide us in our decision making. So the dashboard has absolutely expanded, and I think it'll just continue to do so.
Awesome. Appreciate that, Joy. I've actually got a follow-up question for you on that. A little adjacent. So this week, as you know, Google rolled out a big change to smart bidding. Let's talk about what that change is now and how higher ed marketers need to respond.
Yeah, so if everyone doesn't know, on August 17th, there was a big change made by Google. And in the past, we could have put our acquisition cost at $150. And if we could come in more efficiently through Google, they would do so, and you would get that cost savings. That was a huge win, obviously. What's important now is that simple change of now what we put in is what the target is going to be. If we could get a lead for $100, but we have set up in the system 150, we're now paying $150 for a lead that we could have got for $100. So understanding your real budget, understanding what the cost really is, has to be very accurate today. And you can't just set and forget an account. You have to really go in and manage it. The partnership between you and your agency, or if you're doing it in-house, could not be more valuable today than it was in the past. So you understanding your data is viable right now, or you could either be missing out on leads or overspending for them. So precision really does matter right now. And this change went into effect as of Monday. So if you noticed a dip in your leads, I encourage you to go look at your account.
Yeah, and level,
Really,
you know,
really
we
important.
our POV is that this is the right move. Like what you say you want to bid for something should be what the platform optimizes
Yeah.
against. And so I think this is really tactical, but at the higher level, it's this there was a change to smart bidding. Ask your marketing team or your agency, you know, what they're doing about that, right? Like have them pull TCPA and TROAS campaigns, look at things that are limited by budget, and just make sure that your teams or agency are on top of that. So that's kind of the high level advice is like it
Yeah.
changed, smart bidding, ask about it.
You'll definitely know what you're spending. It won't be the wild, wild west. There won't be flux. So precision is really the name of the game. You're going to get what you put in there, and that is part of it, obviously. But yeah, absolutely. I think Google is getting better at hitting targets that we give them. But if we don't give them that target, which is what this is telling us to do, they're not going to hit it. So you have a little bit more control in your driver sheet. You just have to make sure you know that that's what you have and you're driving it the right way.
Awesome. Yeah, that is this week's feature on things are
Yeah,
changing faster than ever these days.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
thank you for that,
So I
guys.
think your report is really well timed in that regard. So, mhm.
Yeah, I think that's one note, Drew, to mention that the benchmarks report has because we were ready to go to print with this thing. And then Google Marketing Live happened right as we were getting ready to. We were able to get a really nice addendum that talks about the changes that are coming. Some of those dates have changed because, as I mentioned recently, there's nothing certain but death, taxes, and Google shifting their deadlines for things that they announce. So some of the deadlines have changed, so keep aware of that. But there is a really nice overview in the benchmarks report of the things that are coming and how you should be aware of those things. And there are guidelines of like the sections in the report that are relevant to the things that we call out in the addendum. So I would really, it is, I mean, I know this is a little tooting our own horn for me and the folks at LeadSquared, Drew, but like I feel like it's a very useful, practical, actionable report that we pulled together. So a lot of this Google stuff is included in there for sure.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I hope everybody on the call has that opportunity to get leverage out of it later on. We'd love to hear your feedback on it as well. And from there, I have a question for you, Chris. What is the most important metric that you feel institutions should benchmark against peers in 2026 rolling into 2027?
Yeah, this is a tough one. As we've been talking, we want to go deeper as possible and really specific on all the details. But if I have to choose, I will say cost per enrollment and cost per start. Even the cost per lead is going to keep being important metric for marketing. Like I see cost per lead every day. I need to understand how that is actually helping the outcome of the business. So of course, we don't want the cost per lead skyrocket, but at the end, we want to have a real balance for conversion. So cost per start is what's connecting investment to the outcome. That is what matters to the operation. And that benchmark is what I always seeking and we always seeing when we take business decisions. Like if we want to launch a new program, we want to open a new location, if we want to change the modality, those information is what we need to take in consideration. I will add the lead to enrollment, leads to a start conversion.
Well, we lost him, Drew.
Yeah. Wow. Is he still frozen? We might have. Chris, can you hear us? I think that might be all the answer we get on that. I'm sure. Oh, he's
Oh
back.
wait, he's
No,
back.
I'm here. I'm
Yeah,
back
you're
or
here.
no?
Welcome back, Chris.
Oh yeah, my bad. The internet is kind of so I was saying just cost per start connect the investment to the outcome of the operation, and that's important benchmark. But I will go deeper in by program, by campus, by location, by all the details that we have
Mhm.
as an operation, and then have that lead to enrollment and lead to start to sit directly underneath of the cost per start. That's gonna help you explain the performance, why it's moving, why it's not moving, and at the end we want to know how or who can acquire the right prospect at the most sustainable cost. So I always stick for cost per enrollment, cost per start, taking consideration that my cost per lead is healthy.
Yeah, love it. Okay, awesome. Thanks, everyone. That's going to pull us into our second poll for the webinar today, which should be popping up here momentarily. Does enrollment data from your CRM currently flow back into Google or Meta?
Feel like we should have some music during these
I know,
moments.
right? Like some
Yeah.
game show music or something.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, now the Jeopardy theme song is going to be stuck in
The
my
same, right?
Right.
That was
Yeah.
the same song that came to my mind.
Mhm.
You're Alec, you just didn't know it.
Yeah. Okay, so a little
Okay.
bit less clarity on this one than last time.
I really wish somebody had picked choice four,
I know,
honestly.
right?
If-
No one chose it. Yeah.
It was actually the correct answer. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's funny. Well, that goes well into our next question as well. So this is for you, Brad. So most schools run Google on Target CPA, which trains the algorithm to chase cheap form fills. So what's the shortest path to value-based bidding for a school that doesn't have a clean data model yet?
Yeah, so the first thing is value-based bidding is what these platforms offer to put those most valuable outcomes back into the systems to say, actually, hey, we're not just looking for people who fill out a form, we're looking for people who actually take some sort of down funnel action here. So um, the first thing is the quickest path to victory is understanding you don't have to have, and hopefully Joy and Christopher will agree with me. I know Christopher, you and I have talked about this. Your data model does not have to be perfect to start. You just need something better than form submitted in order to get started. So value-based bidding in our report, value-based bidding lifted lead to enrollment 43% across our portfolio. It is very impactful. And so we highly recommend if you're not doing it, if you're not feeding that valuable outcome-based information back into these systems that are running on these AI-powered engines now, do it. Start testing it. Most of the schools that are in that 43% number did not start with a clean, fully built enrollment to close loop. Christopher, I don't even know if you feel like you're like, yeah, our data's perfect now. Like that's, it doesn't have to be perfect. So start with what you have. So fastest path I would say is take whatever status field lives in your CRM, even if it's a bit messy, start testing, sending that data back through value-based bidding mechanisms. So contacted, qualified, interview scheduled, whatever stages you've got, and feed that in as an offline or enhanced conversion. And smart bidding then suddenly has something better to chase than the raw form fill. So there is actually a timeline to this, which we call out a little bit. The timelines, as I mentioned, have shifted a little bit. AI Max becomes mandatory if you're running dynamic search ads. Now it's February. It was originally September. People pushed back and they moved it to February. But you're not going to have a choice at some point. And so waiting for the perfect model just means kind of running on the worst possible goal for longer than you should. And Drew, I would love to hear a little bit of perspective from the LeadSquared side on the CRM and the data cleanliness and feeding this stuff back into these systems.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You touched on a little bit of it. I mean, it's obviously important to see from a health of lead perspective, how far are they progressing through the pipeline, what percentage are making it to this stage, that stage. But, it gets more granular than that. How quickly are they moving through the specific stages? How engaged are they on calls or emails? What specific other demographic points can be collected later on in the funnel? And, I think that this does bring up something worth touching on without opening a rabbit hole where there's variables later in the funnel that are related more to your admissions team, which is why it's really important when we start to look at the distinction between cost per lead and cost per start. That's a prerequisite of marketing and admissions to work more closely together. I feel is worth mentioning here, right? But notwithstanding that, this does open up the ability to build this data model based on how these leads are converting later on in the funnel more effectively, what engagement's being built, and ultimately their propensity to become a student. So hope that helps flesh that out for you, Brad.
I would add, I believe you can do it with TikTok as well. It's not just Meta and Google. You can do it with TikTok as well. So I
Mhm.
wouldn't stop with just those two. We know TikTok, if I'm not mistaken, is probably the third largest search engine technically in the world right now. I think it's Google, YouTube, and then TikTok. So I wouldn't stop if you have it set up for just the
Mhm.
two. Consider doing it for TikTok as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I cannot dare to Brad's point. No, however your current position is, like if you can just see one data point, two data point, let's start feeding that back. Let's start having that information back. You don't need to have the perfect structure to start. It's gonna keep helping you improve. And on the road, it's happened to us. We've been changing how we measure. We've been improving the signal that we are capturing. We've been improving the configuration that we have between CRMs, campaign platform, and so on. So it's just a matter to start looking data and keep improving from there.
Awesome. Well, good stuff, guys. Thank you for the contributions there as well. I think we're going to flip to the next slide here. And then, Chris, I've got another question for you. When a student asks AI about your school by name, you show up 90%, 92% of the time. When they ask for the best program in their city without naming a school, it's 33%. What can help close that gap?
Yeah, I will say it's a matter of content, you know. We have two challenges. We have the challenge of brand retrieval and we have the challenge of brand discovery. That is how this AI platform works, and that's how your institution or your brand is being discovered. For example, if a student asks about Norwich University by name, I'm pretty sure the AI already has an ability to retrieve that information. The harder question is whether we're going to appear as a search result in the top findings of the AI platform. ChatGPT, Google AI Overview, Gemini, Perplex, all the platform, they retrieve information kind of different, but there's some source, and we have another slide that we're going to go over it. But there's certain trends that you need to do from the content perspective to be sure that you can appear as a relevant source of information on these platforms. Content strategy, I think, should increasingly address the questions surrounding about any program, any campus. What are the students actually asking? I partner a lot with admission to understand what the students are asking when they go there, because those same questions are the ones that they're doing in this platform that they probably never reach to your website, but they're using the platform to understand about your institution. So we we need to tell who we are and what we do and how we do it. So it's just a matter of SEO game to be sure that our content actually answer what the student is looking. I rely a lot on FAQ, third-party reference, reviews, brand sentiment. So all that needs to be involved in your content strategy that is taking place on these platforms.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for that, Chris. Joy, would love to hear you and Brad's thoughts actually as well on this one.
I would hope you show up 100% of the time if your brand is being cited personally. But I do think it's everything that Christopher said. He's 100% right. It's all the O's. It's not just SEO anymore. It's AEO. So are you the answer? And then it's GEO. Are you the recommendation? And so we really need to position ourselves as an authority in the space. One example, if you're not active in Reddit, you should be. We know that's where LLMs are scraping for their answers. And so your student may not be there. You could be surprised because they likely are there. But you need to be in Quora. You need to be where the data is being scraped in order to show up. And that's how you position yourself as an authority in the space. So I think it's really important to not limit ourselves to just SEO content. Keywords really aren't enough anymore. And in the past, if we did a Google search, Google would tell us, these are the top 10 recommendations. And then if you do AEO, which I see is in here as well, this is really going to provide the answer, right? So for the consumer, SEO would just say something like, what's the best beauty school near me? And then it would give us a list. If it's AEO, what's the best beauty school in Chicago, it's going to give us an answer. And that's just meaning that we're now one click away, right? But if you think about the chasm that has been bridged between us and any AI platform, whether it's ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, the worry in the past was, will consumers trust this platform? The answer is yes, they trust the platform. Now they're talking to ChatGPT, and this is an example prompt, and now they feel like they're getting a recommendation from a friend. So the value of the recommendation from GEO, in my opinion, is much stronger than the other two, but you need all three in order to be relevant. So a prompt, and if you don't know what the prompts are that are being used, it's going to be way more difficult for you to show up in the prompts. I'm a 23-year-old. I want flexible cosmetology program with financial aid near Chicago. Where should I go? Our goal is now we want to become the recommendation. So there's a couple examples in here on how you're going to become the recommendation. Reviews are more important now than ever before. Making sure you're relevant on YouTube, all these other platforms that data will be accumulated from before they present what the recommendation is. So
Yeah.
SEO win the click, AEO become the answer, GEO become the recommendation. And that's where we are now, I think, in my opinion. For our market, our personas, they're having conversations with their AI agents, if you will.
Yeah, and that's great, Joy. This is an awesome kind of overview of this. The last thing I would kind of add to this is unify your search program as much as you can in terms of how you're reporting and talking about this. So, but that includes paid. So think about the paid, think about the traditional, think about the AI visibility, and pull that together into a singular conversation where you can, because you'll find efficiencies to be gained. You'll understand more about where you're showing up and how. Consumers don't really care anymore about where they're getting the answer as long as they trust the answer that they're getting. And so it's really important to understand the full search engine results page experience for your prospective students, and not just, hey, how am I ranking for this particular keyword, right? It's now like, what is happening once somebody actually asks this question, and really understanding where you are in that conversation. So that's the last piece I would add there, is try to get rid of some of those silos if they exist.
I think the silos are the key, Brad, because if you haven't connected your social media accounts to your Google Search Console, you should, because it'll help you track how your videos are performing in these outside platforms that will lead traffic to your site. But if you don't know if that video is performing really well, and driving traffic to your site, then you don't know, well, I need more videos like that are going to drive and answer those questions and drive traffic to my site. The paths are very different today than they were in the past. And I think Brad's exactly right with the silos. They can't be a siloed approach. It really has to be this accumulation of how we get our voice out there and how you find the right audience that you're looking for your schools. We all have slightly different audiences. So I think if you haven't done that step, I highly recommend that as well, which is new and it may not be in every platform yet. But it is a new change that just rolled out within the last 30 to 60 days. So
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Those were really insightful answers. I want to pass it back to Brad now. What should a school do when AI is giving students wrong information about tuition, program length, or availability?
Cool. So there are two, it's a good follow-up to the last question. There are two parts of that are important here. Two problems, really. So the one thing is making sure that what you are saying about yourself is accurate, up to date, and thorough. And the other thing is what others are saying about you. And that is where AI is pulling this information. So the first thing is make sure you have accurate current program pages with tuition, program length, next start date, accreditation, in the correct structure for AI platforms to cleanly extract that information. That means schema markup, which are bits of code you add to the page that spell out the things like program name, cost, length, and start date. This is a format that is easy for machines to read without taking guesses at what the content is, what's the most important thing you want them to understand about your programs. Then making sure you're including things like FAQ blocks that specifically answer the most relevant questions that are being asked, not the ones you wish that the students were asking, but the ones they're actually asking. That's what you want to make sure you're delivering answers to. And then make sure it's all in a content order that puts the most relevant information about the questions being asked above the fold before any of the additional brand languages and things like that, because that will slow things down. So you want to make sure AI is able to cite answers that from the information that is clearly sitting there for them. So this, I know in the past for some institutions has been very difficult, right, to share transparently tuition information and things like that. And we really, really need to start breaking down some of those barriers in order to really deliver information. Because what's happening is students are getting a lot more information and making decisions a lot earlier before they ever even talk to somebody in your admissions team.
Mhm.
And so sometimes you might lose a student you didn't even know existed because they've already said, okay, well, these schools are telling me what the tuition costs are. They're telling me how long it's going to take. They're giving me some information about, potential careers, opportunities in this field. But this one is not. And even though, it looks interesting and I really like what they have to say, I'm not getting the answers that I need. And so you know what, I'm going to put these three in my consideration set. So that's really important. The other problem here is that AI is potentially confidently repeating something wrong from somewhere else that you don't even know might be out there. An old directory listing, some stale forum post, a subreddit. Um, and this doesn't get improved at all by fixing your own page because it isn't even looking at your page in that instance. It's pulling from somewhere else. So the way to do that is to go check. And, we have a scorecard model that we say, like, take your top 5 programs, look at how you're appearing for brand, non-brand type prompts across the different AI platforms and just run that audit in a scorecard sort of matrix model and consistently run that, once a month or something like that so that you really understand how you're showing up, what the information being delivered is and what those sources are. And often you can go to those sources and say, hey, you've got some old information about our program. Do you mind updating this? That's more difficult with Reddit. Reddit takes what Reddit calls listening or lurking and listening. Not immediately getting defensive about things, but lurking and listening for a while, understanding what's being said, and then engaging in ways that are helpful and useful, not defensive about program information. So that one's a little bit more of a complicated area than just like reaching out to a directory and saying, please update our information. It's inaccurate. But that's the approach there for the offline. They're not always going to respond, and that's okay, but at least you know what's being said and you're working toward getting that information fixed. So it's the internal and your pages, making sure you have accurate information and a good enough quantity of information that is most relevant, and then understanding what's being said and trying to make those fixes where you can.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks. That was really in depth. I appreciate that. Chris and Joy, if you guys have thoughts on this one, would love to hear those as well.
Yeah, I believe Brad summarized perfectly what are all the information here. I just can add that first identify the source of the incorrect information. Sometimes we have the incorrect information platforms, and that's what AI is pulling out. I have a recent sample. We just do a rebranding in February, and when we start searching all platform, we find out profile that the operation didn't know that exists, and they have outdated information. So those type of audit we need to be constantly doing to ensure that the information that is out there that AI is pulling on from the catalog, program pages, landing pages, Redis, thread, you name it, is accurate. And for me, it's more not just marketing on admission, it's more an institutional effort that we need to join together to have the correct information out there. And we marketing make sure that it's properly published. So at the end, AI accuracy is becoming more a brand governance process rather than just an SEO issue. So we need to provide the correct information out there for this platform being able to provide accurate information at the end.
And I wouldn't add anything other than exactly that. It's a governance issue. You have to go do the searches and make sure you're showing up the right way. And you have to have
Yeah.
it done in a periodic way. Again, you can't do it once and think that was enough. So it's a governance issue.
And in our environment, it is having a really, really great relationship with compliance. Because
Mhm.
that in this world where we have to generate a lot more content, where we have to move more quickly, those relationships and partnerships are more important than ever.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody. That was really helpful information as well. I think we're going to go ahead and flip to the next slide and then piggyback on kind of where you're going with the governance issue, Joy. So Joy, sub 1 minute response drives a 391% conversion lift. Almost nobody does it. Is that a staffing problem, a technology problem, or a leadership problem?
I would argue it's ultimately a leadership problem. Obviously, the technology can solve the routing, automation can cover nights and weekends, and staffing can solve capacity, if you will. But it's really ultimately a leadership issue, in my opinion. If you don't have this culture baked into your organization, then you'll continue to struggle here. All of those other things are tools to help you hit that, but I really think it's ultimately a leadership factor.
Yeah, honestly, I would agree with you. I've chatted with a few people internally about this particular idea as well. I mean, the reality is we have the technological capability to have a sub 1 minute response time that exists. If
Yeah.
leadership says we want a sub 1 minute response time, it can be done. But I think that that's maybe not recognized as much of a priority oftentimes as it should compared to other priorities, and it just isn't something that maybe gets as much attention as it should. Ultimately, I think obviously staffing could also be a problem because you do need enough staff to be able to make the take the calls as they come in and make them. But I agree with you that it's a top-down problem. So
Yeah, so I know we talk about it as it's a speed to lead metric, but I think if you wanted to, I know a lot of this has been about ultimately return on investment. It's also a return on marketing investment metric. So if that's something that you value as an organization, we know it's about servicing the student ultimately, but this is one more way to look at it instead of just calling it speed to lead. So,
totally.
yeah.
Okay, and then I've got one more question for you while we're on the topic. A student who fills out your form has usually already inquired at three other schools. What does your first follow-up need to say?
Yeah, I think this is super valuable, and I do love that. I'm fortunate in my seat. I have admissions and marketing under my umbrella, and I get to see how both sides interact. I think that's a luxury I hope most schools have. But we can't really just do these generic approaches. It's meeting the student where they are on their journey. It's not us just, hi, how can I help you today? That's not really going to work. And so the more information you can have about the student before the call even takes place is really valuable. But we want to understand why did they raise their hand? And I think to your point, students are coming in much more educated today on our brand than they were way back. I've been in this industry for a long time when you had vanity numbers on commercials and you knew when the ad was going to run and you all sat by your phone waiting for the ad to run because you knew your phone was going to ring. It's really a much more informed, savvy consumer today, and they are very up on what's going on. They've probably seen you on TikTok. They've probably seen you in several spaces before they ever got to this point. And so meeting them where they are in the journey is really important. And how you do that first introductory call is going to make or break the whole experience. I think it's that valuable. It's not the same as it was in the past by any stretch of the imagination, I don't think so.
Yeah, I would fully agree. And I think it's a huge advantage to be able to like manage both marketing and admissions under the same umbrella. As you said,
Yeah.
it's back to what I touched on earlier, right? Especially when we start unpacking late funnel conversion rates and how those start to impact cost per enrollment. That's where
Yeah.
everybody's got to be able to work together really well in pursuit of that organizational goal. So
Yeah.
that's important. And yeah,
So
I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, I know, I think I keep seeing these little chats come up, so I'm trying to catch them as I see them. I think just to give an example then of what that language might look like, for us, we wouldn't say, how can we help you today or something. We're not McDonald's, right? It's more, I saw you're interested in the cosmetology program. What got you interested in that? Like you don't want closed-ended questions either. And it's really, again, we know they're interested in this program of interest for this location. Now let me take the conversation forward that way. Again, okay. I'm sorry. I keep seeing all these chats.
No worries. Is there any others of the chats that you wanted to address while we're on the
No,
topic? Or you
no,
got me?
no, no.
Well, then yeah, just to chime in on that. I mean, that's the age that we're in, whether we like it or not, is that the expectation of the prospect that in higher ed or elsewise that we're pursuing, they are expecting personalization. They know
Mhm.
that their data is out there, and the exchange for having your data out there is having it be properly utilized by companies that you're engaging with, right? So I really love that and being able to build that emotional connection more on the first call, making them not feel like just a number. I think all of that's super important. And then obviously, working in conjunction with admissions teams, when we're talking about how we can support that through routing and automation at LeadSquared and continuing that relationship down funnel from how that relationship starts, being able to route the student into the correct admissions advisor as soon as possible to really piggyback off of the speed to lead and support that, being able to have automation that admissions teams are able to structure. What is their advisor outreach going to look like after that first touch? Because back to our question, if they've inquired at three other schools, it's not just differentiating on the first call and connecting more than the other two. but it's also being able to continue building that relationship through the student journey that's ultimately going to help differentiate the institution that wins.
Mhm.
So, yeah, all boiling down to personalization. I've had a lot of conversations with people about that particular topic. I'm sure everyone here has as well. So. Cool. Let's mix it up and go back to Chris for our next question here. Certificate enrollment is up 6.6%, and HVAC search demand is up 49%. But healthcare inquiry volume is climbing while enrollment efficiency drops. When do you spend more on a program, and when do you fix the program's value proposition first?
Yeah. So from a marketing perspective, I believe demand is a signal to investigate, but not necessarily you need to start spending there. I believe we need to evaluate three things together: market demand, institutional conversion performance, and what's the student value proposition. So having that perspective, having that trend, you can decide between the demand and the conversion. You can understand where you need to scale, or if you need to diagnose before adding more budget, or even if you need to defend your market share that you already have because you have conversion but you have no demand, or if everything is down and you need to rethink what you need to do, like you need to rethink the message, you need to rethink how you position the program, you need to investigate if the investment on the media channel mix is correct, or even if the program itself need a better value proposition for the market. So I would say that if inquiry volume is increasing but enrollment is falling, determine where the funnel breaks. Like it's tuition, duration, schedule. Like there's so many factors that students take in consideration before enrolling that it can affect at the end your cost per start, like we were seeing in the beginning. So in our case that we are multi-campus operation, different programs and they vary, we need to understand because what is helpful or what is a market demand probably in South Miami or South Florida probably is not going to be the same in Central Florida in Orlando. So those are how you need to rethink and how your strategy get together and make the perfect balance across campuses for the whole operation. So I would say you don't want to pour media into a funnel that is telling you that the product market fit needs attention. You need to reassess and you need to rethink your position and how you approach it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Those are really good points. Joy, do you have anything that you wanted to add in to that as well?
I Not necessarily. I think it's already been said. You need to understand, is the funnel broken? Because you could pour more money into it, but if it's a broken funnel, it's not going to add any real results, right? So you just need to understand and diagnose, and then you'll know where to triage or where to put your efforts. It might be more money, but it may not be, and you're trying to fix the wrong problem. So you need to understand where it's broken, which again comes back to the value of your scorecard needs to be much bigger than just cost per lead because you
Yep.
can't diagnose accordingly if you don't know where the real problem is. So,
An interesting, if you are exploring the value proposition for a specific community, for a specific type of program, an interesting initial use case for AI that we have found has been to build clones of, focus group types of people to start
mhm.
to present different pieces of information, like specifically have the AI tool, whether it's Claude or ChatGPT or whatever, specifically have it understand that community, do research on that community, what's important, some of the values related to that community through news items research, build a focus group that is simulated and put some value props and things like that through that panel, because it can start to help you. I'm not saying replace humans. What I'm saying is it can start to help you identify some hypotheses that you can use for testing around messaging about those programs in the market. So it's just an interesting first way to understand where there might be some gaps. So, but I love simulated panels. If you get deep enough research first, don't just say, "Hey, tell me what you think about this value prop," and pretend you're somebody who lives in this community. Have it do the research first. Have it build those personas and build that
Mhm.
6 to 8 person focus group from a varied selection of people from the community.
That's so smart. I love it. I love putting the personas in there. I think that's a really smart. It'll at least put light on where you might want to focus your efforts, right? You need the human in the loop to your point, Brad, but I think it's super
Yeah.
smart. Yeah. Great use of the tool.
Awesome stuff. So we'll go ahead and flip to our last slide here, and then we've got one more question, and then we'll flip to our last poll, and then we'll look into some audience questions. We'll still be open after that for any questions that come in afterwards, etc. Looks like we're doing good on time. So marketing gets measured on leads, admissions gets measured on starts, and those two goals fight each other. What's one thing that each of you would have a school fix in the next 90 days? And Chris, we could start with you.
Yes,
Start with
sure. I would say more is fix the definition of success and build one shared funnel between admission and marketing. Like we like, and I'm talking about our personal experience, we like to see all benchmark together. I partner with the VP of admission and we see all the marketing costs and the cost per acquisition, but we also see all the outcome enrollment and how it goes through the funnel. So that connection between teams is really, really important. And more important than that, connect the CRM outcomes back to media platform if you have the possibility. That's gonna change the game if you haven't done it yet. That's going to change completely your game and how you can optimize towards start and enrollment. So you can have a shared accountability between admissions and marketing on that whole funnel. I believe the student right now doesn't experience a marketing funnel or an admission funnel. They just experience an institution, one institution. And our measuring model should work the same way to provide the best service for them.
Love it. Yeah, awesome. Joy, do you have other thoughts, similar thoughts?
No, I mean, it's just the scorecard is the whole scorecard. And I know we've talked a lot about the funnel, and I think all of us are super familiar with the funnel. I would just say, I think the funnel is being replaced by a flywheel. So if you haven't looked at your marketing and your student life cycle as a flywheel, that's probably important to consider as well. And you're right, like the students don't experience our org chart, they're experiencing um, what we give them. And so that's very important to differentiate between the two. But I think the transparency is the key. And again, I'm lucky because I have admissions and marketing all under one umbrella. And so we don't have a lot of that in our group, which we're, again, really fortunate for. But I know a lot of finger pointing can happen. And the whole point is to look at the full funnel, and that's where we really win. I know we haven't talked about referrals, but every admissions advisor can win with referrals. So whether marketing's giving them new leads or not, that's always a solution that we can lean on, which comes back to the flywheel. So
Awesome stuff. Brad, you got some other thoughts for us as well?
Yeah, I just scratched out September because that's changed since not that long ago when I put this slide together. It's now February for dynamic search ads campaigns, moving automatically to AI Max. So the big thing for me is maybe a little more of on the technical side, which is understand what you're passing. Audit those signals that Google and Meta are using to optimize your campaigns, and even TikTok, to Joy's point, if you're running it. Um, and then if you are not passing lower funnel or further along the journey kind of information back into these systems, start testing that. I would also say please understand AI Max and PMax. Ask your marketing teams, ask your agency if you're using those features, these campaign types. If you're not, start testing those, because eventually you're not going to have a choice. So it's important to understand them, start leveraging them, start testing them. It does take time once you start using any of these AI features in the platforms. Christopher and Joy, I'm sure you'll agree with this, but like these systems have to learn. You have to give it a little bit of time. You have to be patient, which is why we recommend not these wholesale tests, but figure out exactly what you want to test and how much you want to invest in those tests, and have hypotheses and build those tests out in a way that work. But please test into AI Max and PMax because they will pay off in the long run, and ultimately they're going to be the things that you have to use. So signals, better data, and creative are the things that are going to be those human elements that really we're able to control. Eventually, we're not going to be able to control some of the keyword choices and other things like that we used to be able to as marketers.
Awesome. Yeah, really good feedback on that. I think that's mostly going to wrap us up for today. So we've got one more poll for you guys, which will be popping up here shortly. And then you'll be able to access the benchmarks report here at the QR code on the right, or book a demo to have a conversation with LeadSquared on the left. And we could kind of help consult you guys about how your CRM could start to report back to Google, Meta, and in alignment with one of those questions that we had earlier today. So for our last question here, would you like LeadSquared and Level Agency to help benchmark your institution against the report and report back over the findings that we get?
You know, Drew, this is a really tough question because I take rejection really hard, and you're just really putting it right in my face today. So I'm
We
probably
got
gonna
you,
have to
Brad.
schedule a
We got you.
therapist appointment after this. So yeah.
Where's
Yeah.
option four when you needed it, right?
Ah, yes. That's the best question, Joel.
I'm calling my therapist. Is that the fourth option?
Yeah. Here, wait. Chris, Joy, and I can all select yes, I'd like to learn more just to make sure. Yeah.
It
And
says
I
I
feel okay.
can't. It says I can't actually. I
Yeah, no,
can't
it says
host
Yeah,
new
we're not allowed.
participants. So don't judge us, Brad.
That's funny. Cool. Well, yeah, if anybody has any other questions that's attended, we really appreciate you guys' time today. Hopefully, you guys got a lot out of today's session. Really appreciate the time of all of our participants as well. But we would love to entertain any other questions that we have here in the chat. Anything else that we can help you guys out with our panelists. We will be here for a couple more minutes. And if there's no more questions, then that's pretty much all we've got for today.
Yeah, use the QR code and grab that report and let us know if you have questions. And I want to thank LeadSquared for the partnership on the report, and also Christopher and Joy for, being here today with me and being awesome partners as well.
Thanks to you, Brad. Thanks to Level. Thanks to LeadSquared. Awesome share space with Joy also. It's been a great experience. We appreciate the invite.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Awesome. I don't see any questions rolling in, and it looks like people are trickling out. So I think we're going to call that one a day. But again, thank you everybody so much for your time. I hope you guys all have a fantastic rest of your day. And the recording of this conversation will be sent over to you guys all via email as well. So feel free to share with your teams. Take care,
Thanks.
everyone.
Bye, guys.
Thanks all.
Thanks.